joining us. We're talking about single length irons and are they worth the hype? Bryson DeChambeau plays with these. I just bought a set, so here's what we're going to talk about. What's the point? Really, we're going to discuss the specs as well. I hit a bunch of shots on a Foresight program called Know Your Numbers, which will be cool. I want to ask you, do you need to get fit for them? And then really, who should be doing this? You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, what's the point?
Well, I was going to start with something's wrong with your irons, but I think you've already covered that point.
They're all the same length. That's
Yeah,
how they're supposed to be.
It made it hard to figure out which one I was grabbing whenever I was hitting them earlier.
Brad always laughs at me because I don't really play golf. That's the full disclaimer. But also, I tend to get weird stuff just to try it. So I thought I'd try these. These are the King Forged Tech one length irons. It's a different model than what Bryson DeChambeau plays, the most infamous player of all with these, but they do look really nice. And up until the long irons, I think these are perfectly fine for me to go play my one round of golf.
And your gap wedge is as long as your forehand.
That is. Now I do have one little question. I'm not quite sure. These might be a 1/4 inch shorter than what I wanted them, but that really didn't matter to me too much. So first, these one length irons were popularized by Bobby Jones. I guess he used to play those. Did you know that?
I did not. That was something that I did learn today.
You need to grab a piece of paper,
I'll write that down.
Okay, thanks. And then Tommy Armour started making a set. I think that's when it became more popularized again. That was in 1989. Another bar fact for you. So we've got these. You kind of answered what's the point by suggesting these are all the same length.
Yeah, the idea being you just swing them all the same way. So golf's hard enough. Why not have just one swing?
Yeah.
Kind of can at least make sense on paper, I guess, to start with.
You can rationalize that,
Yeah,
right?
I can see how you could go down that road.
And so far you've told me this is silly that I've got a set. But
Yep.
1 point you've already made.
I see they're pretty clean. There's no dirt on them yet. So
No, I don't know if I'll even hit them all. But anyway, so let's take a look at the specs because I found this really interesting. I did not look at these specs before I ordered them. I just assumed, well, I thought I knew how I wanted these built and that they would just be built that way. So, but
length is the same. Start there.
The same. 37 1/4 inches. I think mine are a touch short, depending on how you're going to measure.
And that's all based off of a 7-iron length.
Yeah.
So everything's basically like a 7-iron.
You got it.
And then even the usual problems that you run into with that, though, if you're trying to do this with a normal set of clubs, is your 4-iron is traditionally, the head is significantly lighter than a pitching wedge. So then your swing weights would be all messed up if you just try to do this to your clubs. And then your lie angles are all different as well. So you would think with a one length set of clubs, you would have matching lie angles, which is the part here that is weird to me.
That's what I would have thought too, but then I did a little info on that. So first you've got the swing weights. You mentioned that. If you had heavier heads in the wedges and lighter in the longer clubs, you'd have really light swing weights up at the top of your bag, 4, 5, 6 iron, and then really heavy down at the bottom. But that's not the case. These are all meant to be the same head weight, and I measured them. They all came out pretty much the same, close to D3 for me, what I did here. The part that you just mentioned that was interesting, if I were going to build a one length set of clubs, I would make the lie angle the same on all of them. They did not. They made them progressively more upright by 1/2 degree all the way through the clubs. Now, I found that one interesting, but that'll piggyback off this next part, which is the loft angles. So the gap wedge, 49, 44, 39, 34, those are all 5-degree increments, and then they start to shrink all the way down to the 6-iron is 26 degrees of loft, 23 at the 5, and 21 at the 4. So that 5 and 4-iron has 2 degrees of loft difference, and the clubs are getting pretty upright for that length, that 37 1/4. So I found that pretty odd. That was different than what I was expecting.
Yeah, and that was always having, prior to you getting those, never hit or seen one in person. The concern I'd always have is that when you do get to the longer clubs, especially just for your amateur golfer, is they're just not going to swing them fast enough to see a noticeable difference from, say, the 4-iron to the 5. Yeah. And then especially when your loft gapping is that tight, it becomes even more of a concern to me. Like if I were building them, I'd almost do it the exact opposite way. I would make the pitching wedges, the wedges in the 9-irons, a tighter loft gap, but then make bigger loft gaps in the upper end of the bag.
Well, that's because you're wrong, I guess. So
wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah. So the trick to one length clubs is really what Brad's trying to get at. The way we expected them with the lofts would be organized differently. The lie angles would stay pretty constant throughout the whole set because the idea is that you swing them the same every time. But Cobra did some research and found out that people actually don't do that. They swing the longer clubs faster. Or not the longer, I can't say that anymore. The lower number clubs, the 4, 5, and the 6-iron, people swing those faster in practical application. So that's why they changed the lofts and the lie angles. Now, I did my own test to find out how I would play with these, and we'll see how that goes.
And
here
why
in
do
a
you
second.
think? Because they weigh the same, they're the same length. Why would you?
I think
What do you
it's-
think that is?
I think it's the intent. So
Okay.
if I have, let's say I normally hit my 4-iron 230 yards, most often I'm trying to hit it pretty far. So maybe I'm trying to stretch that 235 or 240, and I might swing faster, just in general, because I want to hit it farther. Intent in my head.
Just a little bit more about precision with the wedge, even
Yeah.
because of the length. So whether you intend to or not,
Mhm.
subconsciously you just
Yep.
take a little bit off of it.
But I would be curious to see, and maybe their other one lengths are. I've got to throw that out there. I don't know what the specs of the other ones are. I didn't take a look at it. I just looked at these and thought, well, let me give these a try. I thought the 7-iron looked really nice. So now I've got a 4-iron that is really short. Here it is compared to my 4-iron from my older set, a few inches shorter than that. And the lie angle is about 3 degrees more upright. So
Yeah. So
it's
what
starting to get a little
what would you say is the
tough.
rationalization then with the progressive lie angle?
I think it's just for, these are not like the same clubs Bryson DeChambeau or good players would be recommended. So I think these are just built with that draw bias in there.
Okay, so a little more upright just to help with, even though it is the same length, because of the lack of loft and the intent of trying to swing harder, you think people are still going to
I think
slice it in general.
I think that's
average
part of it.
golfer.
That would be a good
So
start.
just trying to build some draw bias
The
in there.
next part I would say is that when I hit a pitching wedge, the butt end of the club at impact is lower than it is when I hit a 4-iron.
Yeah.
So if you're believing that you swing faster with these lower numbered clubs, I could see how you might also raise the shaft a touch
Sounds like
more.
you're suggesting you don't swing them the same.
Well, I'm trying to. That would make the most sense. But no, that's not what Cobra's finding. So you want to take a look at mine?
Sure.
I'll stop banging these together.
Yeah, so see how these things actually panned out. So using the know your numbers like you talked about.
Sure. Well, I did this. Do you want to talk about what happened?
Yeah, I just want to point out maybe a couple things that are of interest to me that pretty much panned out how I would guess based off that loft gapping piece that we mentioned, where if you look at the very bottom of the bag, so your lob wedge and your gap wedge have basically 25-yard gaps between those two. Down at that bottom end of the bag, so from lob to gap to pitch, 25 and 24 yards. It's a pretty big gap for clubs that you want to have a lot of precision with.
You make it sound like I might be doing it wrong.
I'm definitely blaming you and not the clubs.
Okay.
And then the same story happens then at the top of the bag where from 6 to 5, you're good. You have a 13-yard gap. That's pretty reasonable there. But then only 3 yards from 5 to 4. And then, you're obviously probably swinging faster than most people as well. And it still didn't work out that well for you.
Yeah.
So we don't have the actual ball flight here. What did the ball flight look like on that side of the bag?
I launched them all fine until I got to even the 6-iron. The
Okay.
angle of descent was 45 degrees, which for me is pretty low.
Mhm.
It's still good enough, but when I tried the 5-iron and the 4-iron, I'd have to change my swing.
You're going to try
Make
to hit
sure
them
I've
high?
got some more dynamic
If
loft. And then the 4-iron carried 3 yards shorter than the 5.
Oh, okay, so that's even your total.
So that was roll.
So just bump and run that one up there.
Yeah,
And if
exactly.
you go back, the loft on the 4-iron is not crazy strong relative to today's standards anymore. So it's not like it's that much different than any other club you might get off the rack, other than being significantly shorter. So it might be just enough speed loss to make that difference.
Yeah,
Maybe.
that's it. No, I think it was just enough. I didn't quite launch it high enough, and the landing angle was too acute, and the ball just rolled a long way. But it wouldn't be a usable club for me. So if I were going to use these, I don't know what I'll end up doing here really, but I might stop at a 6-iron. I don't really hit too many clubs longer than that anyway.
Get a lot of head covers in your bag.
Not even that.
7 wood, 9 wood.
I mean, we play golf and it's hit a driver or 3 wood, and it's like more than an 8-iron.
It's one of the benefits of playing at altitude for sure.
But maybe I'd stop at the 5-iron. I might just like that for a club to hit off of the tee or something once in a while. Something that's not a 3-wood either.
Okay.
But I didn't find a ton of use in that. Now, personally, when I did hit these, though, they felt awesome. Like, I don't know if that's just I got the taper money shaft, the 130s, just because they're the black shaft, the black finish looks cool. Yeah. And it's called the money taper. So that
cool
was
name,
cool
it looks
too.
Cool. How could it not work?
This is how I pick my clubs, people.
This is what we talk about in training.
Right.
Make it look cool.
Yep.
So then let's say somebody comes in or you're a golfer and you know that you want to try the 1-length club. Because they're all basically the same, do you still need to get fit for them?
Yes, for sure. Because you need to do the same sort of gapping that I just did there to help recognize, are these actually a pretty good fit for you? So you want to get the specs right, to get the loft, the lie angle and the shaft that's appropriate for you. And these are mid-sized grips that I usually use. You want to get all that part right still, but it would be good to know, how far do you hit the 7-iron so that you have some idea of what you need to do gapping on the back end. As you can see for me, I don't hit the longer clubs as long as I used to. And now they're too close together. So this honestly isn't the perfect fit for me, but that Cobra's not trying to make these for me. They're trying to make these for someone who's wants to hit them farther than that and needs that launch. So I did really like these. I would get fit for them. Who do you think should be playing one length clubs?
That one's a great question. I think for most people to benefit from them, I do think you need a little more speed.
Yeah.
Above average. You probably need to be playing at least a stiff, if I had to kind of quantify just based off of that, what people at home might know. I think if you're using a regular flex, then I don't say you can't make them work, but you definitely need to really figure out that gapping piece more.
Right.
They're probably gonna have a bag that looks very similar to yours, like 7-iron down.
Yeah.
So definitely get fit. If you don't swing pretty fast, you definitely need to go through the fitting to make sure they are the right one for you. Don't just buy them online.
Yeah, that's always good advice for sure. Are you kind of hesitant to say no one should really play one length clubs?
Well,
I kind of get that just from you.
I don't want to make blanket statements because I'm sure there's that guy out there that these are the exact ones that he needs. But I'm going to be fitting most of my students into more of a conventional length set this year for sure.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Until they change up some of the lofts, I just don't see how that one length piece built as those specs are really would work for a majority of golfers.
Yeah, and I doubt Bryson's playing those kind of specs.
Yeah,
too.
I'm sure his are very, very different than that.
And is it fair? This is my hypothesis. We'll never get to test it, but do you think Bryson is still just as good if he plays different length clubs instead of one length?
Yeah, I'm sure he'd figure it out just fine.
Yeah,
he's a really, really good golfer. I'm sure if you could say this kind of go either way. I'm sure if you gave one length to majority guys on tour, they'd figure it out because they're really good. If you gave Bryson some conventional length ones, I'm sure he'd figure it out because he's really good.
Yep.
There's a skill in there that isn't just about the clubs.
Mm-hmm. So overall, I'm actually excited and ready to go play with these because they did feel awesome. And I think I hit a ton of good shots 7-iron down, which is a majority of my shots into the green. So I don't see any issue with these whatsoever. It's worth a try if you're interested, but know that there are some finer details that aren't in your custom fit set that you probably have right now.
Have you tried hitting anything around the green with a really long lob wedge yet?
No, I used my own lob wedge.
Oh, on those ones there. Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that was where that massive gap was.
Okay.
And no, I don't want to do that. That sounds like it's really hard. That'll start changing your motor program for sure. And probably a good point of who should be using these. It is different when you're trying to hit shots around the green.
Stop at pitching wedge, maybe gap wedge.
Yeah, I'll probably still use a conventional shorter wedge, but maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this single length iron review. Thanks, Bradford, as always. If you did enjoy it, go ahead and click the thumbs up, and don't forget to join the GOLFTEC community for exclusive content, offers, and to book a lesson or fitting. Check out the link below to create a free GOLFTEC account. Thanks for watching.